Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a Second Star interview. I am here with debut author Matt McMann to discuss his new series, Monstrous. This series is perfect for any middle reader who likes spooky books or for any Goosebump fans out there. The first two books are available May 9th, with the third hitting shelves August 22nd. Welcome, Matt. How are you doing today?
I am doing great, Sophie. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm glad you're here. So, without spoiling too much of these creepy fun adventures like that take place in the books, what can you share with us about the first two books and the series as a whole?
Great. Well, Monsterius is
Oh,
my.
Mysterious. Sorry, I said it
Oh, that's
wrong.
okay. That's okay. You're not the first one. So yeah, take Mysterious and Monster and shove them together. You get Monsterius.
I love
So,
it.
yeah. So Monsterius is my spooky middle grade monster mystery series debut, and kind of talking about the series as a whole first. They are great for targeted towards 8 to 12 year olds, but they're really great for anyone who loves a fast paced, spooky thriller with lots of action, a little bit of humor, and some heart in there. And the books are short. They each are a standalone adventure with a unique cast of characters, so you can read the books in any order. They come out in paperback and hardcover simultaneously. So if you prefer one over the other, you get that option right away, and they come out fast. Like you mentioned, the first two books come out on the same day, May 9, the third one on August 22, and then a fourth comes in January of 2024. So that's a little bit about what the books are like as a whole. The first installment is called Escape from Grimstone Manor. And in Escape from Grimstone Manor, these three friends sneak away to their local amusement park for the day and catch the last ride of the spooky Grimstone Manor haunted house ride. They end up getting trapped overnight inside the ride, and then in trying to find their way out, they make the shocking discovery that the monsters are real. So that's Escape from Grimstone Manor. The second book, The Snatcher of Raven Hollow, is about two friends who learn that a mysterious monster is behind the disappearance of infants in their small town, but no one believes them. So those are the first two. Book three is called Terror in Shadow Canyon. That comes out in August 22, like you mentioned. That's about five hikers lost in a remote wilderness who are stalked by a flesh-eating monster. And then book four in January is called The Beast of Skull Rock, about a brother and sister who try to save their grandfather's creepy Cabinet of Curiosities museum from a rampaging were-hyena. So that's what the Mysterious books are like.
And something I want to add too, if you don't mind, is what I loved. When you pick up the books, you're like, oh, I bet I know this story. I can see where this is going. But you add some fun twists and turns, which was really cool and unexpected, and made them a story you may think you know, but actually you don't know. So I
Oh,
feel like
really?
if you because and I don't want to give anything away, but I feel like in the first book I was like, oh, I bet I can guess what's gonna happen, and I was wrong.
Oh, good.
In a good
I'm
way,
very
in a
glad.
great way. And so I think that's for anyone who's maybe like, wait a minute, I feel like I've read this, you haven't. So I definitely want to say that.
Well, I appreciate that.
So in the first book, Escape from Grimstone Manor, we discover the local legend of Hezekiah Crawley. So did you have any legends, local legends in your town when you were growing up that maybe inspired Hezekiah's story?
I did not have any local legends that directly inspired the story, but how that came about was when we had brainstormed the series. When my wife and I were talking about the series, how it actually came about was she was reading out loud, and she reading an article to me, and she mispronounced the word mysterious and said monsterious instead. And I was like, oh, that would be a great middle grade book title. And she said, no, it's a whole series and you should write it. And I thought, oh, monsters, mysteries. I love both of those things. So I decided to go for it. And so as I was crafting this Monsterious series about with this idea of having a bunch of standalone spooky monster mystery adventures, I ran across a picture of a gargoyle statue in front of a roller coaster. And I thought, that's weird. What's that all about? And I
Yeah.
did some research and learned that it was promoting a haunted house ride at some theme park. And I thought, oh, that would be a great setting for a Monsterius book, a haunted house amusement park ride. And then I just thought, well, what unusual thing can happen in a great setting like that would make for a story? And I was like, well, what if the ride breaks down? What if the kids are trapped there overnight? What if the monsters were real? And that's when I knew I had a story. And then the Hezekiah part actually came in after I submitted the first draft. I definitely had a lot about Hezekiah in there, but I didn't have a lot of his backstory and mythology. And my editor went, you know what would be fun is to really ramp up the local lore aspect of this Hezekiah Crawley guy who lived in this mansion and did creepy stuff back 100 years ago on the site at which the ride now stands. So she was actually the one that kind of pushed me to develop his backstory and even came up with the idea, hey, write like what if they had like a chant that the kids knew?
Yep.
And so fun to get a chance to write that Hezekiah Crawley chant that the kids know and beef up that local lore aspect.
Yeah, the chants are always creepy, especially when it involves children.
That is very true.
Yeah, because I was thinking back with the local legend, like I didn't have any local lore in my hometown, but we all did, Bloody Mary in the bathroom and all of that. So what was it? The light as a feather, stiff as a board. So it's like we all had those things.
Yes.
So even if you don't have a local legend, you can still kind of resonate of what did I do when I was a kid that we would like repeat and just do spooky things.
Yep, you got it.
So The Snatcher of Raven Hollow, the second book in the series, has a very creepy twist at the end of the book. When I read the ending, I was like, oh God.
Yes.
Did you know the ending when you wrote that specific book? Because I feel like that's like thinking back on certain things throughout the book, I'm like, that's a huge plot of it for sure.
No, I did not. Is the short answer. That I knew what would happen at, the overall story arc with the kids, trying to solve the mystery of what's happening with these disappearing infants, realizing the monsters behind it, tracking down the monster, and then without giving anything away, the big action-packed climax that happens in a spooky cave.
Yeah.
So I had that part of it. But then one of the things that I really wanted to do with these books is to have something unexpected at the end of every book, just to give that reader a sense of, oh, the roller coaster has come to an end. Wow, that was fun. And then right before you're done, a little drop that kind of catches everybody by surprise. And so as I was thinking through while I was writing that book, well, what could that little unexpected twist be?
Yeah.
Suddenly, I'm not even quite sure where it came from, to be honest with you, but it was somewhere in the context, in the process of writing that book, that idea, which I can't say without spoiling it, popped into my head of like, oh, that would be so bizarrely creepy to just put that in at the end. And so I wrote that in at the end. And then I had to go back and kind of weave that thread a little clearer so that it makes sense. So people won't see it coming, hopefully. No. But once they do, they can go, you don't want a twist to come out of absolutely left field, because that's no fun. That's a cheat. But for readers to be able to go back and go, oh, wait, I can see it now, but I never would have imagined it coming.
Yeah, it just like instantly like clicked in my head. But at the same time, I was still just like, oh, I definitely, you don't see it coming, but it makes sense.
Great, that's perfect.
Yeah, so I just assumed, I was like, wow, he like knew the ending and worked backward.
No, I do like to outline. I'm more of a planner, more of a plotter than a pantser, but I'm a little bit of both. And it's part of what some of the most fun things that happen in a story. Some of your best ideas come in the process of writing as you get to know the characters. And sometimes the characters stand up and kind of take the action on themselves and say, I know you were thinking we were going this way, but I want to go that way. And that's sometimes some of the most fun parts of the story.
Yeah, that's true. And speaking of your writing process, when trying to get into the mindset of creating a spooky story, do you listen to like creepy music, like the soundtrack of The Shining, or are you like writing in the dark of the night? Like, how do you get into that mindset? Because you seem like a very happy person.
I'm a very happy person that apparently has a dark side. Um, the short answer is I don't do anything to do
Okay.
that. I really don't. It just, first, I mean, I can sit here in our little condo in Phoenix, Arizona, sit in the chair. Like I've got my writing chair, like right there. And then Lisa had my wife, Lisa, New York Times bestselling author, which is amazing. Lisa McMann,
Yes,
she's
shout
got
out
a
to
writing
Lisa
chair
McMann and her
over
amazing
there.
series.
Yes, the Unwanted series, the Forgotten Five series, they're fantastic. But yeah, we just sit here and kind of like say, okay, going to work now. And we just sit 10 feet apart from each other and we're just writing away and doing our thing. And for some reason, I am able to just kind of drop into that creepy stuff, just sitting, doing my thing. Sometimes I will put on there's a website called, I think it's Ambient Soundscapes. And so, like if I'm writing a dungeon scene, I can put on like dungeon sounds. Or
Yeah,
writing a forest scene, you can put on, creepy swamp. It could sometimes have just kind of that in the background that can help evoke that mood.
that's really cool. Well, speaking of your wife, I did catch in the second book a sweet little nod to her when one of the characters does read The Forgotten Five. And I can't remember which book it was in the series, but it was one of the books, and I was like, hey, I bet that's a nod to his wife. But then I
Yeah.
also noticed a nod to your daughter as well when there was a mention of Tio being Nancy Drew. So
Yes.
searching through your About You section on your website, I also saw you have a son who's an artist. And
Right.
there are quite a few paintings mentioned in the series. So I was curious if any of those are maybe a tribute to any of his artwork. And then for people who don't know your wife, I know you just mentioned her, but for people who
Sure.
don't know, or your daughter, can you give them a background so that way they know to look for those tributes?
Yes, that was such a great catch. We have a quirky artistic family. So my wife, Lisa McMann, New York Times and USA Today, bestselling author of 29 books for middle grade and young adults. My daughter, Kennedy McMann, is an actor who plays Nancy Drew on the CW version of the show Nancy Drew that's currently airing. The fourth and final season will air starting May 31, I believe. And then our son, so anyway, yes, in the Snatcher of Raven Hollow, I had a scene where I wanted the kids to be reading like books they just got from the library. And so
Yeah.
I thought it would be a nice nod to my wife, Lisa, to put, have one of the characters actually reading one of her books, which is a nice crossover of real life meets fiction. And then Teo, who is,
Oh, Teo, sorry.
oh, trust me, that's okay. I had it wrong in my head until I actually looked up how
Oh.
to I'm like, oh, I've been saying Teo this whole time in my head, and it's
Yeah.
actually Teo. So Teo is really obsessed with wanting to solve this mystery of what's happening with these disappearing babies. And Logan is kind of like reluctantly drug along for the ride. And he's like, okay, slow down, Nancy Drew. So as a nod to my daughter. So no specific nod regarding the artwork to my son. However, my son, who is a professional illustrator and graphic designer of Great Raven Design Co., he came up with this idea when we were talking about how we wanted to promote Monsterious of, hey, why don't you do a Monsterious card game like
Ooh.
Pokemon or Magic the Gathering? And so he has actually designed 5 different Monsterious cards with rules where you can play a simple Monsterious card game with this amazing art of all the monsters that are featured in the books. And I'm going to give those away at bookstore events.
That's
And
so
if kids
cool.
want to check it out, I've actually got, hopefully tomorrow, my website's getting redesigned by, what you see right now is my humble attempt at a website. But
I
I'm
think it
getting,
looks good. It looks, I will say, it looks better than some other authors I've seen. So you're doing great.
oh, thank you. Well, I appreciate that. Well, then you'll really be impressed when it unveils, hopefully tomorrow. We're hoping it goes live with a professional designer that's given it an overhaul. And one of the things you'll be able to find on the site is pictures of those cards and some game rules and all of that stuff. So yeah, if you want to check that out, that would be great. Oh, and I will have some tour dates on there. So if you want the Monsterious cards, you can come out to one of my events. I'll be touring in Michigan and in California and in Arizona and Washington State here in early May.
Nice. Very cool. Well, as we close out our interview, I just want to say thank you again for meeting with me and discussing this series that I think kids are going to love and adults will enjoy, either reading with the kids or maybe just even reading it themselves. So with that in mind, if you could jump into any monster book, which one would it be? And you can choose one of your own. I will allow it.
That is a tough question. Anything by Lindsay Curry. Her books are she writes middle grade horror, and her books are so creepy without it all being gory or over the top. I don't know how she does it. She's really gifted. Any of those books would be great. And then honestly, if I had to pick one though, I would pick Monsterious #4, The Beast of Skull Rock, because it's set in a creepy Cabinet of Curiosities museum that as I wrote it, I was just like, I want to just go here. I want to be in this museum. So if I had to pick one book, Beast of Skull Rock.
Okay, I'm actually really excited about that one. I will say that you describing it earlier definitely piqued my interest, and I can't wait for that. You said January, right, for that one?
That one's January. Book 3 in August, that one in January.
Very cool. Well, thank you again for meeting with me. I really enjoyed this talk with you and getting to know you a bit more. And you can purchase the first 3 books down below, and then eventually we'll add the link for the 4th one. So thank you again, Matt, for meeting with me.
Awesome. Thanks, Sophie. Great to see you.
You too.